Welcome, everybody, to Wire2Wire Sports Podcast, show 130. I got the new merch rocking, baby. I'm PG&A. It's the Masters Week, a tradition unlike any other. I'm Gene Walzak, PG&A. To my upper left corner, I got the Prince of Production, the man, the myth, the legend. They call him Cottrell Simpson. College Cottrell.
I appreciate the extra nickname this week.
I'm just having fun, man. I feel good. I feel great. I got a lot to get off my chest this week. We got a lot to talk about. In my upper right corner, I got Uncle Shally, Scholastic Shally, Bill Shallcross, rocking the new hoodie. Stand up, show them the hoodie.
I ain't standing up, but the new hoodie is nice.
The hoodie's fire, bro. We both rocking blue tonight, too. I got the blue. I got every color. I bought 3 every color. But I feel fire. I'm ready. Let's get rolling. We have a lot to get into this week. Look at the board. NCAA, college basketball, men's and women's, MLB, NFL, linebackers list, UFC, the Masters. You got to be kidding me. It's all there. It's a wild week. Are y'all ready for this?
Yes, sir.
Well, then let's get rolling. College basketball. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. The men's national championship game was an absolute snoozer.
Yes, it was.
Absolute snoozer. Final Four game between FAU and San Diego State was the best part of the men's weekend.
Agreed. No debate. Debate there.
I don't know how, and I should be honest when I say this. I don't know what more to talk about. UConn dominated. Like, I am way more intrigued. And just like the viewers, because the women's national championship outdrew the men's. It sounds like it's just, I got to talk about the women's national championship. We'll get into that in a second. Let's talk about the men's for a second. We'll get right to the women's. Let's talk. What were your thoughts on the national championship? UConn just absolutely ran the table, won every game by double digits. None of them were close. Dominant performance, and 18.7 points per game margin of victory. Your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I think they dominate from the open tip. I mean, they did pretty much what they did every other game that we watched them play throughout the tournament. I agree as well. I mean, there was a point in the second half where San Diego State got up to 60-55, and even when it was there, I never felt like UConn was in any danger of losing that game. And I think that is kind of what a lot of other people picked up on, and kind of what made it, I'm going to say, boring. I mean, it was still a nice game to watch, but the outcome was never really in doubt. I mean, when UConn had to get a basket, they could get a basket. San Diego State's toughness, which was, shown throughout the tournament, and their defense, it got them there, which was great. But, their lack of offensive prowess against a UConn team who is honestly probably a little underrated defensively, that was kind of, the turning point in the game. Just way too much, Adama Sanogo, and then Jordan Hawkins came to life in the second half, and Andre Jackson a couple really big assists and drives, and it was just a lot of UConn, man. I mean, it's the reason a lot of people picked them. This is a team that was unranked beginning of the year, got as high as I think they were number 1 at one point. Actually, went through that weird streak in the middle of the year where they lost like 6 or 7 games, and a lot of people wrote them off, and they got hot at the right time, which is a lot of people always say is half the battle. You got to be playing your best basketball when you're in the tournament. And, I think we saw that. I think UConn was just a better basketball team, and it showed, and the score reflected that.
I 100% agree with you. Cottrell, break it down collegiately. College Cottrell, get nuts for me. Do something. Make it more entertaining than goddamn that Final Four.
I think the bad part about that game was it was just really a bad matchup for San Diego State. San Diego State had been a team that was very reliant on their defense. Obviously, they didn't give up too many points. Like you mentioned it last week, they only gave up like high 60s one time in the entire tournament. So they haven't been a team to shoot the lights out. And UConn got out the gate hot, before you knew it, before it was 10 minutes left in the first half, they were already up double digits. And so 10 for most teams doesn't seem like that steep of a hill, but the way that San Diego State plays basketball, they're just not built to come back from that. And you kind of saw it in the second half. They would hit a couple threes here and there, but that's just not their offense. And, when you get in a situation like that and you have to try and force baskets and get away from what you're used to and how you play ball and how you win games, it makes it really tough on you. And to UConn's credit, every time San Diego State did make those runs where they cut it to 8 or 6, UConn will respond right away, hit a big three, or they go on a 6-0 run right after that. So UConn was very resilient, and it's crazy that we got to see a, no pun intended, wire-to-wire national championship game.
You ain't kidding. And let's put it to you this way. UConn dominated the Final Four, dominated the entire tournament. Didn't have any close games. And you got to give Dan Hurley his credit. He incredible job coaching. Some of the rotations, the screen and rolls that led to open threes and open layups throughout that entire tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Give him his credit. UConn was the best coached team in this tournament.
For sure.
Call it like it is.
For sure. And I think even like crazier part about it is that, again, we've talked about UConn on this show before. We knew that they were capable of winning a national championship.
Yep.
They did not play that good all season. And I know it's about playing your best ball in March. They, even as dominant as they were during the regular season, they didn't look like that team. Before this tournament, I don't think anybody was expecting, Sonogo to even be a thought of leaving school and going to the draft. But now that's a real possibility for him. Jordan as well. Like, they might lose both these guys, and I don't think they were expecting that coming into this tournament. So it's truly crazy how things like that can flip. And, once those teams get hot, and I mean, talent wise, they were a 4 seed, but they were by far, I would say, the most talented team of the teams in the Final Four. So it's just crazy how that kind of works out.
By far. But before we get into our way too early next top 5 next year, listen to me. I'll scream this to the mountaintop. I'll scream it as loud as I possibly can. The women's tournament was more entertaining than the men's. Call it what it is. Listen, even from the Elite Eight, I was locked into this women's tournament. From the Cavender twins to Caitlin Clark to the Bayou Barbie. This tournament, Haley Van Lith, the star power was on the women's side. And the viewership showed it. 9.9 million people tuned in to watch LSU versus Iowa Sunday.
That's crazy.
And there's a lot to get into with that. We got to unpack a lot because there's, a lot of really stupid comments coming out from after that game. I will give my opinion and my points first. Then I will address Mr. Oberman, Shaquille O'Neal, and a couple others that commented on this. And I'm just going to give my personal opinion, right? My opinion is this. I don't agree with how far Angel Reese took it. I think it was a little over the top. I think if a technical foul was issued when it was happening on the court, no one would be saying a word. Here's where the issue lies. I don't think it's okay that when Caitlin Clark does it, it's referred to as swag. And when the Angel Reese does it, it's referred to as classless. Keith Olbermann getting on Twitter and running his mouth and saying a 20-year-old female is an effing idiot is a joke. Dude, delete your account. That's not what you need to be doing. Caitlin Clark is she's not Angel, right? She definitely talks her smack. She did the You Can't See Me versus Louisville. She did it very quickly, not in the player's face, which is a little bit of an issue what Angel Reese did. We all forget what she did versus South Carolina, right? When she waved off the three-point shooter and was like, you can't shoot. Go ahead. Caitlin Clark is a baller. And I think that when men talk trash and when men have these barbs where they get in each other's faces, it's funny. It's laughable. Patrick Beverly, you're too small to LeBron James just a couple weeks ago. And we say this, right? And then Austin Reeves sending it right back to Patrick Beverly just a couple days later. It's funny. It's entertaining. But when Angel Reese does it, it's classless. I have a lot of thoughts about this, right? And before I pass it to you guys, I want to say this. Do I think Angel Reese went too far? Kind of. I think she was a little much. She's following around the court. It was a little much, not crazy. But where I'll stake my claim is this: men have went too far multiple times, and it constantly gets swept under the rug. Whereas when a woman goes too far, and women show swag, and women show intensity and wanting to win it's talked about in a different light. And I think a lot of these people are hiding some undercover sexism, racism, however you want to place it. It's a lot of undercover stuff. You know, I think that it's looked at completely different because I don't know. I'm just very unhappy at the outcry. Instead of talking about the LSU women's basketball team and how they were a 3 seed and won the NCAA tournament and defied all odds, we're talking about this slop, right? We're talking about this overall slop trash that's getting put out because of certain members in the media. And last but certainly not least, Jill Biden, you are not exempt from this list. Why was Iowa invited to the White House?
That is crazy.
Why? Tell me why. Because Caitlin Clark was there? Because LSU didn't let you in their locker room before the game? Come on, Jill. I just I don't like that Iowa versus LSU got portrayed as black versus white. I don't like that. And I think that if Iowa beat LSU, Jill Biden wouldn't be inviting LSU to the White House. They're my points. I'll stop there. I'll pass the rock. Cottrell?
So, I mean, I agree with a lot of you said. I mean, I think you hit a lot of the points on the head. For me, yes, you know, what Angel Reese did, was it a little bit much? Sure. She is a 20-year-old college athlete that just won a national championship. That was hearing about Caitlin Clark all week. And, you know, for the most part, you know, we gave her some love last week, and I'm not saying national media didn't give her any love, because, you know, Bayou Barbie, she's definitely gotten some attention, but let's be real. Like, the noise has all been about Caitlin Clark, her dethroning South Carolina, and it rightfully should have been. You know, what Caitlin Clark has done this season has been incredible. What she did in this tournament has been incredible. And she also just beat the undefeated team who even LSU couldn't beat earlier this year. So everything that's happened earlier in this season and what's been going on through this tournament has been absolutely warranted for Caitlin Clark to get her praise. So if Angel Reese feels a little slighted by that, you know, I can understand that. Did she do much? Did she do a little much? Yes, 100%. Now, the other things that I kind of wanted to address as well. So Angel Reese is, I mean, she's coming off of her best season. Next year she's gonna be an All-American, and you know, she's a household name now. The one thing that I absolutely love about her right now is that she has not backed down from any of her antics. She's doubled down on everything. She said, "I'm not going to apologize for being who I am." I don't necessarily agree with. She says she's felt disrespected by how Caitlin Clark had handled things. I don't understand how you can be disrespected how Iowa game planned for a separate team. Obviously, it worked for them. That's how they got the win. I get, you know, waving off all of that. I 100% understand that, but that wasn't disrespect going towards LSU. So on that aspect of it, I completely disagree with her. But I hate that this is taken away from LSU's success this year.
I agree with you.
South Carolina had been the consensus to win it all. Like I said, they had a matchup against LSU earlier this season that South Carolina took care of business, and Iowa beating South Carolina was a huge deal. I said it last week on the show that I thought the national championship game was going to be between Iowa and South Carolina, because I thought if Caitlin Clark could beat that South Carolina team, there was nothing that was going to stop her. And if you watch that championship game, you saw LSU never had that game in doubt. There was never a moment that you thought Iowa was going to come back and take care of business. Iowa did make a run, but LSU was never in serious danger of giving up that lead. So it sucks that that aspect of it and how dominant this LSU team has been in this tournament is being overlooked because of all this. And people commenting on this, and like you mentioned Keith Olbermann. I highly doubt he watched any other
Correct.
women's college basketball game in this tournament.
He didn't know that Caitlin Clark did it in the Elite Eight. He had no idea when he got called out on it by Shaq.
I know.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, he backed out of it. But I mean, I think that's also part of the bigger issue. And the last point I want to make on it, the viewership alone, 9.9 million outdrew the men's game. We have to stop just blindly saying that women's sport, or like women's basketball, they need more viewership to generate more money or to get them more money. Clearly the interest is there. I don't know how you fix it, but the interest is there. There are stars in this college game, and I get it. People were seeing Caitlin Clark, people were seeing Angel Reese, but the stars are there.
Yeah,
you can bring money.
Many of them.
You can bring money to that sport. I just hope they find a way to fix that, because now you see that people want to watch.
You are 100% correct, Bill. I'm going to pass it to you. But before I do, the one thing I want to say is Villanova, and we talk about all these people. Villanova had the leading scorer in the nation, Maddie. They also had Haley Van Lith for Louisville. You had the Cavender twins for Miami, even though both of them aren't incredible. One of them is very good, but they were making national news. You had Caitlin Clark. You had the Bayou Barbie, Angel Reese. All of these girls that were dominating the headlines of this NCAA tournament, yet they get minuscule amounts of money put towards their overall program. You know, these guys are staying in first-class hotels. They get the gyms fully loaded, and the girls are getting half of that. So let this be noticed, man. Wire2Wire's out here letting people know what time it is. Shally.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the women's thing before. I mean, I actually used it as "you've got to be kidding me" last year for the Final Four with the setup the women had for the gym, and the guys were having like LA Fitnesses running out for them and everything else. I mean, it's a lot. It's a way more complicated conversation than all of this, but if anything, it was kind of like you guys said, it was a perfect storm for them this weekend. All their stars got to the end like they were supposed to, and and the men's teams didn't. I mean, if you're not a hardcore basketball follower, or you're not a Big East fan, you probably haven't seen UConn play this year. So I mean, as good as UConn was, I mean, you didn't have the household names in the Final Four for the men. Florida Atlantic, San Diego State. The majority of the people they're watching the tournament, following it, and doing brackets and doing all that crap, like they probably never watched those teams, let alone maybe once all year. So the women took full advantage of it. The men's game was the lowest watched men's game since they started recording ratings. I think that's very telling. I think it's very telling that they just assumed that Connecticut was going to win the game, and a lot of people just didn't dedicate a lot of time to it. As far as the Clark and Angel thing, I tend to agree with a lot of what Gene said. I don't think they're the exact same situation is because how they were applied. Angel's was a little different than Caitlin. Caitlin's was going back to the bench with her own team. I do think Angel went a little far, but that being said, I mean, the only other gripe I saw that was with it that I tend to agree with a little bit. I think it's a little bit much to do, when you're up 15 with 3 seconds to go or whatever. But
yeah, you're talking about Portnoy.
Yeah. At the same time, it's I really I mean, it's they both did it. I think the situations are different, and it's okay to say the situations are different, but still be okay with what happened. And that's kind of where I fall.
Agreed. Shally, facts. That's facts right there.
The one thing Cachell brought up too, Angel said she's not going to change who she is, and she's going to be her, and I'm all for that. And I think the biggest part of the problem with all this is there's just a lot of people not comfortable seeing female athletes portray themselves that way, and that is
they better get comfortable with it, because that's what. First of all, what starts selling tickets with MMA, right? trash talk. You
Yeah.
know it starts. Trash talk's part of the game.
Hmm?
Stop expecting women to be classy when they're competing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a classy thing, but I think it's. I don't think anybody thinks they're classless or they're too classy, but I think it's just. I think people expect them to be more reserved. I think is the right word,
Correct. That's a better word.
and not show their spur of the moment emotion on the court. I mean, listen, the girl, the young lady just won the national championship. Like she's allowed to be happy and show her true colors and show who she is. The only thing the only back end part of this I would warn is she's going to play next year. Like she's going to get that from everybody she plays next year. Like it's going to be, I hope she stays true and I hope she doesn't, get out of her comfort zone and try to be something she's not or take it over the top next year. She's going to get everybody's best shot next year now. There's going to be a lot of
100%.
people. There's going to be people that are going to want to hit the shot in her face and talk to smack and all that stuff. So, but again, that's how you're going to get people to watch. I don't.
That comes with the territory though. And I think you win a national
It
championship,
is.
you understand regardless that the bullseye's on your back, and
You
that's what
understand it,
happens.
but not everybody handles it properly.
I agree.
That's my
I agree
point.
with that.
She's gonna hear more next year than she's ever heard in her life. And again, I just hope she stays true to herself. She keeps balling and she does her and not get carried away or let people get in her head. But overall, man, I think it's blown out of proportion. I hate that, Gene brought up a good point. I hate that people are talking about this more than they're actually talking about the two
LSU
teams.
winning.
Yeah, and LSU winning and the journey they were on. And we've talked about Kim Mulkey on the show. Not my favorite human being in the world, but listen, she left a powerhouse program in Baylor and went to LSU in 2 years and said she was going to do this, and she went out and did it.
Yep.
And she's
I give Kim Mulkey credit. Kim Mulkey, 100%. You could see it in those players' eyes. Kim Mulkey 100% made those women believe that everyone didn't believe in them. No one liked them. They all knew. Angel Reese knew about Joe Biden's bracket. Oh, they didn't have us leaving the Sweet 16. Like she knew. They knew. They all knew. They all knew they were disrespected, and they all spoke on it. And she did a great job. It's very Saban-esque.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's good college coaching. Listen, you don't have to like Saban. You don't have to like Belichick. You don't have to like Mulkey. They're good coaches.
I will say though, the one thing with that though, I don't necessarily agree with, and if it's their thing, they don't want Joe Biden in the locker room. That's 100% fine. You got to pick somebody. It was nothing personal.
I agree that they took it a little too far in saying that they didn't pick them to go far enough. I understand your point, but doesn't matter to them
to get motivated. No,
to
get motivated for sure. But I'm saying like they could have let her in the locker room. It wasn't her bracket. That's what I'm saying.
I hear you. All right, let's.
If we learned anything, man, I mean, look at like the littlest things in the world that drove MJ to just do the craziest things in the world.
But I love seeing women's competitiveness, guys. I love the fact that we're 25 minutes into the show and we've given the women's national championship just as much as the men's. That makes my heart warm. I love that. Let's get into our top 5 way too early predictions for next year. We have them all listed here. Catrell, you want to go through yours first, and then Shally, and I'll go 3.
Yeah, I'll go through mine. So my number 5, I'll go 5-1. My number 5, I got Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic is a team who I was just telling Gene, I don't necessarily trust them. They had a phenomenal year this year. They're bringing back pretty much everybody on that team. I don't really see them. I don't see how that school can replicate the magical run that they had this year. And I hate saying magical because it wasn't like it was a fluke. They won 35 plus games this year. They were a really good team this year. I just don't see how they can necessarily replicate that next year. But they're bringing everybody back. So way too early going into the year, they have to be there for me. Just a sheer matter of respect. Number 4, I got Miami, the U. I think they're going to bring back their best player. I don't think Isaiah Wong is going to declare for the draft. I think he's going to come back. And what Jim Larrañaga has been building with that Miami program has been special. They've went on two great runs the past 2 years, Final Four 2 times. So I have to respect what Miami is doing, and they're starting to recruit well too. So I think they're going to be a team that's going to be a tough out to start the year next year. My number 3 is Michigan State. Michigan State's going to bring back a lot of people next year. They're expecting Walker to come back next year. They're bringing back Bogart as well, and they have the number 3 recruiting class in the nation this upcoming year. They got they're getting the best center in the country for my money. I think Michigan State's going to be a really tough team, adding in those veterans from this past season with the 2 5-star kids they're bringing in next year. Duke's another one. Duke's really not losing anybody. The only one that might not be on this team next year is Jeremy Roach, but I think there's a good chance that he comes back as well. I think you couple that with the talent that they already have with their recruiting. Duke's always going to be great on the recruiting aspect of it. I think talent-wise, they're going to have more than pretty much everybody in the country besides who I have at number 1, and that's Kentucky. Kentucky, you would think they're losing Oscar Tshiebwe, that they'd be on the downslide for next year. That is 100% not the case. They got 3 of the top 4 recruits in the country, led by my guy DJ Wagner, who I think should be the number 1 player in the country. And then as a whole, they got 4 out of the top 11 recruits. So Kentucky is going to be a powerhouse. I really feel like DJ Wagner, Justin, his last name's escaped me right now, but he's the number 1 player in the country at the moment. Those 2 on the same team with Coach Cal. Kentucky's going to have some vets that come back as well. Tshiebwe is probably going to be the only one that they're only really big loss for next year. I think Kentucky's going to be the odds-on favorite to win the Natty next year.
John's got some serious. Listen, why is Kentucky on these lists? Why? Because they had another top 3, which this year is the top recruiting team over Duke. Calipari is a joke. Last championship was 2012. $9 million a year. Can't fire him for another 6 years. I think Marquette, Duke, Tennessee, Ohio State, and Baylor is my top 4. That's 5 teams, brother. Duke is losing Proctor too, by the way.
Well, the one thing that I'll kind of shoot back is Baylor is going to be losing LJ Cryer next year. He already hit the portal, so I don't think Baylor is going to be as good next year. Ohio State, I think, can get there. They had a really good recruiting class this year, but they don't have any vets, and I think they're going to probably lose Bryce Sensabaugh to the draft. So kind of going to be in the same boat that you were at last year. And with Kentucky, you could say that all you want to, but talent.
They haven't had
talent.
a 4 out of a top 11 recruiting class in
Correct.
5-6 years. So let's stop. We can stop pretending that they're not going to be really good, because they are. Sean, let's get into your 5, brother.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Michigan State, number 5. A team, we've talked about a lot on the show the last couple of weeks. To a lot of Cottrell's points, I think this is going to be a year where you could realistically say Michigan State could win a championship next year. I say that because Israel's going to have enough guys coming back where it's not going to be a complete reload. He's got a bunch of key contributors coming back, top recruiting class coming in that he can mix in. It kind of smells like a really, really, really good Michigan State next year. It's not going to be a starting over type point. It's going to be a bunch of veterans who are really good players mixing in new kids. I think they're going to be really, really tough next year. Florida Atlantic, I have number 4. They're most likely going to have 6 of their top 7 kids back. I think they're going to have an advantage with all the experience they gained this year. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to make another Final Four, just like Cottrell said. But I think they deserve to get, the credit of, what they did this year and, what they have coming back for next year. They don't play in a tough conference. Ended up 33-4. They lost 4 games last year. I don't care what conference you play in. It's not easy to have that type of record. They're going to have all the experience. They have a lot of talent. Again, I'm not going to say they're just, like Cottrell said, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to make another run. But I think they deserve to be ranked highly to start the year next year. UConn, I have number 3 simply because with a lot of these teams, Cottrell's already mentioned Tshiebwe for Kentucky. We don't know exactly who's coming back and who's not yet. Obviously, if they lose Hawkins and all those guys, UConn's going to drop off this list. But if everybody they have stays on this team right now and comes back, they're absolutely a top 2 or 3 team for next year. So I think this is a little bit of a conditional pick, but I like where they are right now. I have them at 3. Kentucky, I have 2. a lot of what I was going to say, Cottrell already mentioned. DJ Wagner coming in, that recruiting class they have coming in is sick. It's it's going to be a little bit tough because I think a lot of those guys are one and done. Like DJ Wagner's probably a one and done kid. It's how fast Calipari can get them bought in and get them, playing together on the same page. You saw it for spurts this year. And then again, but then they had a game. They ran into a really hot Kansas State team in the tournament, and missed a couple shots down the road, and there they went in the Sweet 16 again. So it's I think there's a lot of rumbling and frustration with Calipari in Kentucky. I will agree with that I think John is onto something there. I mean, it's for the amount of talent that he gets in and year out, and 2012 is a long time ago in college basketball terms. So that being said, I think they're going to be very good. I think Oscar's actually going to stay. That's just a gut instinct for me. And then if I think he stays, then I do agree with Cottrell. I think when the opening lines are up, they might actually be up already. But if they are, I mean, Kentucky's probably one of the favorites, if not the favorite. I have Marquette number one just because they played a major conference and they have 7 of their top 8 back. I think they ran into a little bit of a bad matchup at Michigan State and a team that was a little bit underseeded at Michigan State. I think they're a very good team. I think Shaka having all that experience back and having another year to build and get that team a little bit tougher, I think they have a chance to make a run next year. Not saying necessarily the best team in the country, but I think they're a top 3 or 4 team to start the year next year in rankings.
Kansas has a sneaky good recruiting class. Elmarco Jackson from South Kent is going there, and then Chris Johnson's already committed. So I think that Kansas has a sneaky good draft class coming in. So I think Kansas will remain in the top 5. I know they lost their number 1 star to the draft. I get that. Marquette, I have it number 4. I'm not as high as Shally is on them, but they, Shaka's a very good coach. He's definitely fell flat on his face last few years in the tournament. He needs to get over that hump, and hopefully another year with Marquette, he gets there. Duke, Flippanowski's returning. They got the number 3 recruiting class in the country coming in there. I think Duke is going to be fine. They're my number 3. Look, stop disrespecting my FAU Owls, baby. Florida Atlantic University, they were 38-4 on the season. They're returning all 5 starters. That was not a fluke. They dominated teams from the get-go. And then I got Kentucky number 1. Kentucky's got the best recruiting class I've seen in the last 10 years. They have 4 out of top 11 prospects in the country going to one school, that including 1, 2, and 4. So say what you want about Kentucky. Kentucky is going to be there. And you can hate Calipari all you want, but he has a pedigree of winning. And, I know it's been a while, but if he doesn't get it done with this class, I might join you, John. But right now I can't. With that class that's coming in with Wagner, oh, my Lord, that class is going to be in. And I am inclined to agree with Shally. Oscar Tshiebwe still has 1 more year eligibility. I think he might come back.
Only reason why, so 2 things that I did want to get out. Only reason why I don't think Tshiebwe is coming back, I don't think he can necessarily help his stock. At this point, NBA teams, they know what he is. They know what kind of player he's going to be. There's nothing that he could go back to school and show them to help improve his draft stock.
More money in NIL from Kentucky than he's going to make as a bottom of the first round pick.
I agree there, but I mean, there's something about being I'm sure his dream has always been to make it to the NBA. Not saying he won't be there next year for him, but
I definitely think there's things he can still improve upon and polish a little bit, though. And I think,
of course,
I'm not saying he's going to go. I do agree. He's probably bottom 10 in first round right now. I don't think he jumps up to like the 4th pick next year, but I think he can improve, enough to still get in the middle of the first round. If
you're going to make more on your NIL deal than you're going to make as a number 26 pick, why not stay an extra year and develop?
Yeah, I agree, and have a legit shot to win a championship. So I mean, it's you get one, maybe more than one depending on what team you're on. But I mean, once you leave college, you can't win a Final Four anymore. So, and I think the other thing that needs to be mentioned with a lot of these things is there's a couple really big names in the transfer portal right now. So it'd be very interesting to see where a couple of those kids land because they go to the right team, they could absolutely change the fortunes of some of these programs for a year. So
I will
You have
tell
Caleb
you.
Love, you got Hunter Dickinson, you got a couple people. I mean, those guys are bona fide stars. So if somebody that's already, a top 10 team adds a kid like that, I mean, that's, we could clearly be adding somebody else to this list.
I'll tell you right now, I'm begging. I am begging Caleb Love not to go to Michigan. It sounds like he's between Michigan and Missouri. Hope he heads to Missouri.
I'll tell you right now, this question by John, no one have Houston in their top 5, been there pretty much every year the last 10. Do you know why they're there every year in the last 10? They're the modern day Gonzaga. They play in a crap conference. They beat up on bad teams, and then they make it to the tournament and lose before the Sweet 16. Don't lie to yourself. Houston's definitely overrated. They constantly get knocked out early in the tournament, and they get overhyped because they're in a bad conference. Sorry, needed to put that out there.
Don't
John.
disagree with that.
Comments.
The only other thing too that I'll put out there is I'm not on the wave yet of completely getting rid of Coach K. Even if it doesn't work out, if they don't win the national championship year or go to the Final Four, I'm not saying I'm okay with it, but you got to realize that Coach K had number 1, number 2, and number 3 in the same class, and they couldn't get past a Michigan State team when they had Zion, Cam Reddish, and RJ Barrett. So, like, just because you bring in that talent, it's not guaranteeing a win. So Cal's going to have some work to do, and I fully expect Kentucky to be really good next year, but it's not championship or bust next year for that team when you're led by
championship or bust, but they can't lose in the Sweet 16 again.
Agreed. I agree with that. 100%.
And the difference is Coach K had way more recent success and more consistent success than Kentucky has. And I think that's where, you can have a year where you lose in the first round to Lehigh or something like that, but then when you win a championship 2 of the next 5 years, I mean, it erases a lot of that stuff. And again, Calipari, I mean, he hasn't won one in over a decade now. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I think it's also, it's a lot of that has to do with the expectations, that he himself said, and, say what you want, but the amount of money they pay him as well. So, I mean, that it all factors in. And Kentucky is, I mean, they're the Alabama of college basketball. I mean, they're one of them like that. They expect to win a championship every year, and if they don't, then they're gonna bitch and moan. That's just how Kentucky is.
I was muted because of the train. We got to move on to our top 10 outfielders list. This is the most contested list that we ever have. It's always because it's loaded, right? It is loaded. There's so many outfielders. We use every outfielder, left field, center field, right field. This is not an individual outfielder list. This is all of them. So without further ado, I love it. We all have the same top 3. That's good. Just different orders. No issues there.
All the same top 4.
Yep, perfect. That's fine. Quickly just scrolling through to make sure Cottrell didn't throw any Guardians on his list. I'm good there.
Stephen Kwan, baby. Put some respect on his name, man.
No, bro. Stop lying to yourself. He's
put
not
some
top
respect
10.
on his name.
I have respect for him.
I don't have him in my top 10. I'm just saying.
Hey,
next year he might be on this list.
Okay, well, we need to get into this list because this list is fire. Start us off, Cottrell.
All right, so I struggled with my number 10 here. I know you got Gene's list is a little bit different because he doesn't have Mookie. He had Mookie making the transition. I think we all have 8 of the same 10. You guys have Michael Harris on your list, and I'll let you guys get it. I'll let you guys get into him. I don't know how I could leave off a guy who hit 46 home runs last year.
He got it 212.
That's fine, but you hit
the worst
40,
outfielder.
You hit 46. You hit 46 home runs. You could play for me. You'd be in my top 10. So I got Kyle Schwarber there. Michael Harris. I'm gonna need to see it again. I need to see it again. I believe in him. He looked great last year, but let's replicate that success.
I hear you. I'm not. Listen, I have somebody that you guys don't have on your list. I'm all right with that. Guy, Shelly, give me your number 10. Your number 10 is wild, bro. Move him up. Move him up the damn list.
No,
I know you hate him, but move him up.
I don't hate him at all. I mean, but he's again, this is him being 10 is the same reason I don't have Bryce Harper on my list.
Dude, he's coming. That's a big difference.
He's still not going to play for a little bit. He's also not going to step on the field, and without seeing live pitching for a year and a half, and not
It's fair.
he's not going to just automatically be a 40 home run guy. He's on the list because of how good he is, but he's at the bottom of this list for the same reason. He's going to have 20, 25 less games than everybody. That's a lot to make up, especially when you're comparing it to the elite talent that is on all three of these lists. And I have him at number 10 out of respect for him because he is that good. But Fernando Tatis Jr., I think if he's playing a full year, then yeah, obviously he's not my number 10 on this list. But he's going to miss games. Going to be a lot of games to make up and try to catch up numbers wise. And I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to get comfortable and get back in the swing of thing and get his timing back at the plate and all that good stuff. So, I'm not going to say I did anybody a disservice or anything, but I mean, it was, still putting him 10 was a lot of, it took a lot of thought. I mean, you could easily leave him off your list, but I stuck him number 10 because of how good he is. So he's number 10 for me.
Okay. My number 10 is Kyle Tucker. We've seen way too much of him in the World Series. Left-handed power hitter, good fielder. Kyle Tucker's an absolute stud. I have him as my number 10. My number 9 is a guy I expect to take off this year. Cedric Mullins of the Orioles. You've seen I had the Orioles in the playoffs, and I love me some Cedric Mullins. I think if this list wasn't so loaded, I would try to have Cedric Mullins even higher. He's already started the season pretty strong for Baltimore. He's their leadoff hitter. He constantly finds himself on base. He hits for power, average, 5-tool guy. Cedric Mullins is my number 9.
Yeah, I like Cedric Mullins. He probably would have been number 11 on my list. With the way everything's configured. I just, I think the two guys I have ahead of him. I think it's easier for you to put him on because you don't have Mookie here. But number 9 for me is a guy that's already come up in conversation. Michael Harris. Kid's a 5-star kid. Great defense. Could steal bases, fast, good arm, hit for a little bit of power. Can also, hit for average too. You saw the drastic difference in that Atlanta team when he came up and started playing full time. He's a budding superstar. I only have him number 9 because I do agree with the, it's more my method of thinking. But Cottrell already mentioned it. He's got to show it to me again. If not, I could tell you, I think he's physically gifted than 2 or 3 people I have above him on this list right now. But I have him number 9 because I think he warrants it. His upside is to the moon. I think he's the ability to be a top 2 or 3 outfielder in the league the next couple of years. I have him number 9, but I hate that he's a Brave because I get to see him all year. But I do enjoy watching him play. So Michael Harris is number 9 for me.
Just want to address this comment real quick. Just to let you know, the Astros have started 500 in April for the last 3 years, and they've done fine. Don't concern yourself with what Houston does in April.
These April overreactions are just mind-boggling. It's like people are on like bridges already. I'm like, they played 4 games. Like, calm the hell down.
All right.
I just think it's rich how Cottrell says Michael Harris has to show me again, but then we'll have like Jimenez as number 2 or on his list when he's showed him for 100 games. I just a little bit jaded there, Cottrell.
Hey, you might not. Hey, different positions, different rules to follow. Because I will say the other part about it is second base is even close to as loaded as the outfield list.
Fair.
So
fair.
My number 9 is Kyle Tucker. Speaking of a guy who's kind of getting the short end of the stick here, he's my number 9. But I mean, any other position list that we do, I mean, he's very close to being in the top 5 and pretty much in most of them. I mean, plays great defense in the outfield. He's coming off of one of his best seasons last year, won a Gold Glove, 30 home runs. And then we saw his play in the playoffs last year. Fully expect Kyle Tucker to build off of that and have another phenomenal year.
Yes, sir.
My number 8 is Julio Rodriguez, who really had it. He had his coming out party last year. I get it, rookie year, but he was a guy who had been playing great baseball, and then we saw him in that home run derby, and everybody knew who he was at that point. Put on a show for everybody to see, and I think this upcoming year, Julio Rodriguez is just going to get even better with another year under his belt. I think that Mariners team is going to be better this year. I know they made the playoffs last year. I think they'll be even better this year. Adding in Teoscar Hernandez, I think Julio Rodriguez numbers goes up even a little bit more than where they were at last year. And I think Julio Rodriguez, depending on how this year goes for him, he's a guy who we could see in the top 5 next year.
I like it.
So number 8 for me, I have Kyle Tucker, Houston Astros. I think he actually goes on a little bit of the same list as Cedric Mullins. I think he's underrated. I think he's underrated because he gets overshadowed by even certain people on his team. He's not, most people would, argue. I mean, all three of us have another guy in the same outfield as him that's ranked higher than him. He's not even the best player on his team, but he's a star. Gene already mentioned it. I was sick to death of watching him hit home runs in the upper deck in right field in the World Series last year. He killed our right-handed pitching, and most people don't realize how good of a fielder he is. He was the right field Gold Glove winner last year for Houston. Pretty 275, 280 plus average guy. Good defense, good arm. He hits for powers. Had over 100 RBIs again last year. He continues to move up this list. I think he's a really good, quiet player. Doesn't say much and just rakes. He's another guy that's going to just continue to climb and get better and better. He's a young kid. He's just one of those building blocks that Houston's going to have for a long time.
So Bill is a show me guy. Cottrell is a depends what list it is guy. I am a projections guy. I'm a projections guy, and I will project. Michael Harris is a budding superstar, not a star. I think next year you might have Michael Harris ahead of Ronald Acuna Jr. And I'm not being smart when I say that. He's the next one. And that Atlanta Braves organization just keeps funneling out superstar young talent. Michael Harris is all about it. He bats 5 in that lineup. I could see him moving up, batting 4, or with Olsen there, I don't know. Austin Riley's in that lineup. That lineup's loaded. The guy's going to have 100 RBIs, and he's going to hit 35 home runs. Michael Harris is just that guy. He's my number 8. Number 7, this guy might be the most talented guy in Major League Baseball. I'm not saying he's the best, but talent-wise, he can do it all. He hits for average. He runs the bases. He is quick. He is exciting to watch. Fernando Tatis Jr. is making the move from shortstop to outfield. He'll be back in 2 weeks. And because he's missing the first 15 games of the season, I have him number 7. But I could definitely have him higher. Fernando Tatis Jr. is my number 7.
Number 7, I have Julio Rodriguez. Cottrell already spoke to him a little bit. Reigning AL Rookie of the Year. His coming out party last year at the Home Run Derby. If you were a baseball fan, you already knew about him before that. He was a highly coveted, highly ranked in top prospects of baseball year after year. Seattle called him up last year, gave him the leadoff spot, and he ran with it. Hit over 25 home runs from the leadoff spot. Had a monster year. Played center field for them. He's still hitting leadoff. He is in the same boat as Michael Harris for me. And Gene just mentioned it. He's on his way to becoming a superstar. There's a kid you're going to hear about for the next 10 years being one of the best players in baseball. He can do everything, does everything well. He's a true 5-tool kid. Again, I think it's, as great as he was last year. I'm up a little bit higher, not so much of a show me thing, but I think he's got to replicate it. And I just think the 6 guys ahead of him just have better years. I don't think he's going to decline that much or anything like that, but I have a number 7 for me.
My number 7 is a guy that both of you guys have already mentioned. That's Fernando Tatis Jr. Really not too much more to say about it. When he's playing, he's one of the best players in baseball. Obviously, his suspension is why he's lower on this list, because I'm sure next year he will not be at 7. I can almost guarantee you that. So I fully expect Tatis to come back, loaded Padres lineup. He's going to put in numbers. And I will say the one thing that I'm hoping to see from him, obviously this was a big learning experience for him. I hope the move from short to outfield, I just hope he has the right mindset about it. I think he will, young kid. I think he knows what's at stake. Padres can be a championship winning team this year. So just hope he attacks that with the right mindset. My number 6 is going to be Ronald Acuna Jr. Acuna Jr. last year is coming back from the ACL injury, was starting to get back to form. I think this year we see him get back to true Ronald Acuna form. I think again, this guy is when he was healthy, that 20, even before he got hurt in 2021. I mean, he was up there in the NL MVP discussions. Obviously, that was like at the midway point in the year, so it's still pretty early. But Acuna Jr. is one of those guys who can be the best player in the National League. He can have that caliber season, and I fully expect him to get back to that this year.
Yeah, get back to your Tatis thing. He better. I don't think he has much of a choice. I think he's a little bit more fragile ground there than most people believe. People forget during the offseason, there's a lot of rumors, a lot of links to people, a team. San Diego was trying to move him. So, they went out and got, Xander, and he's going to be their shortstop. So I hope Tatis goes out and plays center field and just balls out. Cause I mean, he's got a lot of fans. I mean, I love watching him play. The kid's fun to watch. Number 6 for me, I have Mookie Betts. Not sure what's wrong with Mookie Betts, if I'm being 100% honest. His first year in LA, he tore it up. He, almost won the MVP. Last 2 years hasn't hit over 265. His run numbers are still up. That's not so surprising. He hit lead off for that team, hitting 1 and 2, depending on the night, depending on who's pitching, that type thing. I struggle with Mookie because I know what his peak looks like. I know what his ceiling looks like. I just don't know if we're going to get that this year. Again, Mookie Betts is not a 265 hitter. He hasn't broken that number the last 2 years. And again, I think his numbers will still be there. He's still a great defender, has a great arm. I'm curious to see where he ends up offensively, and I think the 5 guys I have in front of him are all just going to put up better numbers. So he's number 6 for me this year.
I get it. I have Ronald Acuna Jr. number 6. Ronald Acuna Jr. is an absolute monster. I think the 5 guys ahead of him are just elite, and I'll get into that in a minute. I know the elephant in the room is where I have my man Julio, but I'll get into that. Ronald Acuna Jr. is a stud. I overrated him a few years ago, and he lived up to that expectation before he tore his ACL. Ronald Acuna Jr. is a top 10 outfielder in this league. Guy does everything right. Hits for power, hits for average, runs the bases, and is a very good fielder. The next guy on my list I have as a future MVP, a future superstar. Like I tell you, I project. Julio Rodriguez burst onto the scene the second half of the year. He was an absolute catalyst to that Mariners playoff run and one of the best series you'll ever watch. I love him. I can't not look at him and see a potential MVP. Julio Rodriguez is everything that you look for in a young ball player. I have him number 5, and the only reason I have him number 5 is because the 4 people ahead of him are absolutely solidified as the best 4 out of top 6 hitters in all of baseball. But Julio's my number 5.
Number 5 for me, I Ronald Acuna Jr. I think the most important fact about him is it's going to be his first full year back from ACL surgery. Yep. Cottrell mentioned the big point. He was the runaway favorite to be MVP the year that he tore his ACL. He had almost 30 home runs at the All-Star break. He was killing it. I think the only thing that's ever really brought into question about him is he has mental lapses sometimes. He doesn't like to run things out, might throw to the wrong base, stuff like that. Stuff that, if it's somebody that's supposed to be, for lack of a better term, the face of your franchise and your best player, things you wouldn't really want to see. Physically, talented-wise, the kid can do anything he wants to do. For me, that's the only reason he's number 5 on my list. But again, I think he bounces back to 2020 and 2021 form. I think he's healthy. I think he has confidence in his knee again. He trusts it again. I think he can play full speed and, just bore ahead. I actually, in a weird way, think Michael Harris being in the same outfield as him, I think actually helps him a little bit. I think it's going to push him and, kind of keep him on track and, realize maybe he's not as irreplaceable as you like to think that he was before. So, but saying all that, absolute stud of a baseball player, crazy talented. Number 5 for me.
So my number 5 is going to be a guy that Bill already mentioned, Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts, for me, I think this is his year to really get back to what we saw that first year when he was in LA. Last year he didn't have a bad year. I mean, he won the Gold Glove and he was a Silver Slugger for his position. I mean, he hit 270, hit 30 plus home runs. Like, it was still a really good year. It's just down to the Mookie Betts standard. I think Mookie being in that lineup again this year, I think his numbers will be pretty similar. You know, he can be a 30, 35 home run guy, close to 100 RBIs, 270 to 280 average. Like, I think that could be good for him. Plus his caliber of defense as well. There's no way I couldn't have him in my top 5. I think Mookie is. I know Gene picked him to win NL MVP. I think Mookie can have a special year this upcoming year. My number 4 is Yordan Alvarez, a guy who I don't want to say came out of nowhere because he won Rookie of the Year, but this last season was definitely one to show you and put his name in that conversation of best hitters in baseball.
Yep.
It was truly the special thing to watch. He was one of those guys where he came up, you just don't know where the ball is going. He could hit it anywhere around the park. His power is insane, and you know what he did, that run that he went on in the playoffs was crazy too in that Astros lineup. So I think Yordan will have another incredible ceiling. I think he's just starting to get to the peak of his career, and who knows what kind of crazy numbers he puts up this year.
So, I mean, we're getting to the part of my list anyway, where you're talking about guys that can do everything. Yordan's a little bit limited defensively, but he's sufficient in Houston because they have a short porch and left, and he does DH a lot. But we are starting to talk about, one of the best hitters in baseball. And I mean that as an overall hitter, kind of like Cottrell said, you might expect him to smash the ball in the upper deck and right. He might hit a double down the left field line. He can hit the ball to all fields. He has power everywhere. All the Phillies fans are, quite aware of the home run that he hit. That was pretty much the final nail in the coffin for us for the World Series. The moonshot that he hit to right center. The dude's an animal. He's elite. He is an absolute legitimate MVP contender right now. He's only 4 because I think the 3 guys that in front of him are all consensus Hall of Famers pretty much already, minus one guy. But I mean, he's just too young to really be that at this point. I think Yordan's well on his way. Me and Gene were talking about it last night, and it's literally anybody asks me about Yordan, I literally say he's an animal. The dude's an absolute animal in the box. Great hitter. Great hit. Yeah.
He has to be the most feared left-handed hitter in baseball. Just feared. I'm not talking about the best left-handed hitter in baseball, but like the one guy that can at any time drive that ball over the fence. I think Soto would be the best left-handed hitter in baseball, but I think Yordan would be the most feared left-handed hitter in baseball.
I think the two of them are very interchangeable. I would say if I'm a pitcher, I would still probably rather pitch to Yordan because I think Soto can beat you. Soto isn't like if you need to get one out, Soto will walk a lot more than Yordan will.
100%. You're right.
Soto's got a couple more ways to beat you, or for
if there's a runner on first and 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning, you're up 1 run, I don't want to pitch to Yordan Alvarez.
I don't want to pitch to him at all, but I really don't disagree. I mean, those are your two candidates for being that person. But
Yordan's my number 4. He is an absolute stud. I only put him 4 because he's a part-time left fielder, part-time DH. He's not a great fielder at all, and the 3 guys ahead of him can do it at the plate also, but they're also very good in the field. My number 3 is Mike Trout. Mike Trout is, without a doubt, one of the best players in baseball. I think the 2 guys I have ahead of him are in better situations and better parts of the lineup and are going to win more games. Mike Trout's a great outfielder. I hate that you guys both have him 1, I have him 3. I don't mean to say anything like I told you so, but he peaked when he was 26. That's what he did. I said it. I was correct when I said it. And the last 2 years have been nothing but prove that. Mike Trout's a great outfielder. He's just behind the 2 people ahead of him.
I mean, okay.
I mean, you can say what you want to say. I'll
Peaked,
pull up
yes,
statistics
yes,
on top of
yes.
statistics.
Peak, quite literally peak. Yes, he had his best
That's what
season
I
at that
said.
age. Yeah, but okay.
So would you argue that Aaron Judge, you're going to argue that Mike Trout's going to have a better year than Aaron Judge. The Aaron Judge plays in basically a little league ballpark where he hits pop-ups over the fence and hits 60-some home runs. Like statistically, he's going to have a better year than Aaron Judge, than Mike Trout. It's not fair. Mike Trout's a better player.
Statistically, Aaron Judge peaked last year. So
we don't know that yet.
Mm-hmm.
We don't.
Okay. We don't.
All
Not
right.
yet. Let's just let him go, and then we're all going to talk about these three guys. So.
If he doesn't go 65 and 320 next year, he peaked last year.
He could go 65 though. He plays in a little league ballpark. I'm not saying that he's better than Mike Trout. He's not.
I get that, but I'm just saying
he's gonna have a better year.
I'm not arguing that point of it. Okay, I'm saying
good.
the peak aspect.
Mike Trout at 26 was
correct. He had his best season.
I hear you. You'll ever see in the history of a center fielder ever. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, he's lost a step. Don't lie to yourself because you love him.
If I told you 280, 40 home runs and 80 RBIs in a season where it missed 40 games and I didn't put a name on it, you'd be like, oh, they're playing great baseball. Like they're probably going to be really good next year.
Mike Trout's not a 280 hitter for his career. Mike Trout's a 320 hitter, a 315 hitter. That's what he's been his entire career.
He missed 40 games last year.
Not to mention, he's the best fielding center fielder for the first 5 years of his career. What he used to do. He's not that anymore. Guys, I'm sorry. He's still the second or third best player in all baseball. But he's just not number one or two.
I told you so thing when he had accurate. A good year last year. Okay, so if Aaron Judge doesn't hit 65 and 320 next year, then I told you so. He peaked last year. All right, okay, fair enough. Fair.
But he still has 2-3 more years in his prime to do it. If you see him noticeably fall a step or two, you can say that. But if he doesn't, you can't say that.
Well, if he goes 50 and bats 298, then I'm saying it. So
you can say it. That's fair.
Number 3 for me, I have Aaron Judge. And I have Aaron Judge number 3 simply because I don't think he's going to replicate what he did last year. And that's, again, this is going to go kind of fall into both of what you guys were both talking about a minute ago. I don't think Aaron Judge is going to have a bad year. I simply don't think he's going to replicate the historic year that he had last year. He was healthy all year, which was a huge, a huge accomplishment for him because it's the first time he's done it. I think he's capable of doing it. I think the contract talk is out of the way. He signed that huge extension with the Yankees. I think he can relax. That being said, hitting 63, 64, 65 home runs is really hard. That's why there's only a handful of people in the history of the game that have ever done it. He's a little bit older than most people realize. I think he turns 30 this year. I'm not going to use the word peaked because I hate using that word, especially in baseball, because there's been too many people later on in the career that just have a career year out of nowhere. And he obviously has the physical talent to do it. Great player, great guy, is completely won over New York and is completely comfortable in that market, which is not easy to do at all. Not easy to be. It is, ask Derek Jeter, he'll tell you, it is not easy to be the face of the Yankees, and Aaron Judge has done that.
Can I tell you something real quick?
Sure.
He signs that contract with San Fran. He's 6th on my list. I swear to God, I'm not kidding with you. I think Aaron Judge is great, but if we're being honest, he's severely helped by playing in a little league ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say that playing Yankee Stadium is not an advantage. I don't know it. I'd have to go back and look at his spray chart last year and see how many home runs he hit, like 320.
7. That wouldn't have been out of any park except Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
7.
There you go. You have the answer. Okay. I believe you. I'm just saying I didn't know that number off the top of my head. I'm glad you did. Yeah. So yeah, so that puts him at 55. Again, I just don't. I'm not putting him here. There's no penalty. He won the MVP last year and deservedly so. I would have voted for him last year.
Yep.
Because it was a historic season.
Yep.
And I think you have to reward that. I just think the next two guys are both in kind of the same boat. And I just think they're gonna have better years.
I love it. Cottrell, 3 and 2.
My number 3, I got Juan Soto. I think Juan Soto returns back to his Nationals form here. Obviously, numbers were down last year. wasn't playing well with the Nationals. Then he got traded, played better with the Padres. I think this year you're going to see Juan Soto return to that NL MVP caliber form. Again, loaded roster. It's gonna. I assume he's gonna have a much better attitude towards the game. And that's not like a shot at him or anything like that. It's just, being in Washington, I 100% understand it. I don't think it's right, but I 110% understand it. But I just think he's going to have a better mindset. He'll be more comfortable in that lineup. Now he's going to have a full season under his belt, and he's going to have so many bats and so much talent around him. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year. My number 2, I got Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, obviously special season last year. Only reason why I have him 2 is the guy I have number 1. If I see him play 60 games, I think he could be right up there with him numbers wise, and he's a better defender. So Aaron Judge, special. He'll have 45, 50 home runs this year. Bat a crazy average. I will say I love the adjustment that he's made. Doesn't strike out quite as much as what he used to. So I think Aaron Judge has figured it out, and he's going to end up number 2.
I like it.
Number 2 for me, I'm going to go with Juan Soto. I've been very consistent no matter what the sport is. I think when you change venues and you change scenes, I think it's kind of like an injury. I think it takes a full year to really get comfortable, feel like you're actually going to your home every night, getting comfortable in your community, your surroundings, and getting comfortable, at the ballpark, football stadium, whatever it may be. I've always been consistent with that. And I think you're going to see that this year with Juan Soto. I think he's been out there now. He's out there. He's settled. He's playing in, for me, the best lineup, if not 1A, best lineup in baseball. And listen, we know what he is. I mean, I don't think you could watch him play his first 3 or 4 years and watch how he played last year and think that's anything more than a blip. He is one of, if not the best pure hitter in baseball, along with the guy that I have in front of him. Has a tremendous eye. His on-base percentage, which is an underrated statistic in baseball, is always extremely high. It's through the roof. There's a ton of pitchers that just don't want to pitch this guy, and he'll gladly take walks and score runs. And that's a very important part of baseball. He's not selfish hitting-wise. I think he rebounds. I think his defense does need to improve. But I also think with him playing in San Diego, he's going to be playing in warm games all year, which I also think helps him.
Yep.
Not the most hitter-friendly park in the world, but he's not going to play in any 35-degree games this year either. He's going to play in sunny San Diego for 81 games this year. So I think Juan Soto returns to form. Like I said, he was my pick for MVP for the National League. I think you get old Juan Soto, and that's why I'm number 2.
I got Aaron Judge number 2. He's a great hitter, great player. He's he's probably the most feared right-handed hitter in all of baseball. He can go yard on accidentally hitting a ball. His strength is insane. Aaron Judge, my number 2, last year's MVP, guy had 60-some home runs. Unbelievable. My number 1, and I want to preface this, right? This is going to come off as wild again, and that's okay. If you delete the month of April for Juan Soto, because he, for whatever reason, I don't know why he's never ready to play baseball in April, but he's batting like 190 to start the season this year. He just got 2 hits last night, so he'll probably move up a little bit. But Juan Soto from May through September this year will bat over 350. I will make that statement now. He will bat over 350 when Tatis comes back in that lineup from May to September. For whatever reason, this guy starts slow. He doesn't get his timing down right, whatever that is. But I think when I watch it, especially when I watched him in NLCS and the NLDS last year, he is unbelievable at getting around at all pitches. And with that pitcher-friendly ballpark in San Diego, that's okay, because a guy like Juan Soto smokes the ball. And with no shift, I think he's going to have so many doubles this year. His power numbers might take a drop, but I think his batting average is going to skyrocket in the months from May to September. I'll even make this statement. I think from May to September, if you delete April, April's part of the season, so you can't for the whole year. I think he might bat 400 or above.
No, this again.
I do. From May to September. That's not a whole year of doing it. I don't know why he always starts weirdly slow. But when he gets warm and he starts raking the baseball, I don't think there's anybody that's a better pure hitter in baseball. It's my number one.
Number one, I'm going with Mike Trout. If you look at his splits last year, he was on pace to, actually hit one more home run than Aaron Judge if he was healthy. He had 40 home runs in 112 games, still drove in 80 runs. He's going to hit in front of Shohei Ohtani all year or until they trade him. He made a lot of changes in the offseason this year. You saw it, even in the World Baseball Classic, slimmed down a tad. Really worked on his legs this year, and he's got a whole new routine for his back. Says he feels great. He's already started hot this year. His OBP was over 60 coming into this game, which is unheard of. Obviously, it's not going to stay there, but he is the king of being the most productive guy in the league per at bat. WAR dictates that. His fan WAR graphs dictates that. The dude's already in the top 20 for WAR all time in baseball. I'm not going to get into the peaked argument. I think he still has 2 or 3 potential absolute monster years in him before he starts to trail off a little bit. I'm going to disagree a little bit with Gene said earlier. He's never been anything but an above average defensive center fielder. He's never won a Gold Glove. He's never going to. Mike Trout's just somebody you have to put in your lineup because of what he does at the plate. He's not bad. He's not going to hurt you, but he's never going to win a Gold Glove. He is, from my opinion, again, unless you're going to make a perfect pitch, he's a guy that can hurt you in so many ways. If he hits a flare to right field, he'll end up on second base. If you don't throw him a strike, he won't swing at it. He'll walk. If you throw him a strike and it's too much part of the play, he's going to hit it 430 feet. Yeah. I think he has a monster year. Again, I think if he keeps up that same pace he's on last year, I think there's a shot Aaron Judge's record only stands for 1 year. So he's capable of doing it. So I have him back at number one. Health is a big thing with him. But again, I mean, he's talked about it. He's talked about it a lot in the offseason and in the preseason. He loves the new routine. He says he feels great. So I have Mike Trout number one. I think he's the best player in baseball, not named Shohei Ohtani.
I also have Mike Trout is at one. I think Trout's going to have a phenomenal year. I think the back issue definitely gave me a reason to be a little cautious on him, but he came back and he was fine. And I don't expect that to really be an issue yet. I think that's going to be an issue further down the road. Obviously, I know they came out last year and said there's no way to make it perfect, and he's just going to kind of have to deal with it. But I mean, the way he dealt with it last year after he got back was special. So I think Mike Trout will have another phenomenal year. I won't go as far as to say that he's going to hit 63 home runs this upcoming year, but I do think we could see a Mike Trout year where he goes 50 plus and contend for that MVP award this year. Obviously, with Shohei on his team, it's going to be tough, but if anybody could do it, I think Mike Trout can. So I think Mike Trout stays number one.
It's amazing to me, and we'll wrap this up. You can take the graphic down, but it's amazing to me how you hear this line so much. Mike Trout hits 3 home runs, and Shohei Ohtani does the first thing. This has never been done since 1944, and the Angels lose 9-6. Like, I just, how do you have the 2 best players in the world and aren't a playoff team? Oh, it drives me nuts.
Rendon's been a bust, and they just don't have pitching. I mean, and you're playing in a division now. It's getting tougher and tougher. I mean, Texas has a couple hitters now. You all know what Houston can, and now Seattle's good. So,
yep.
I hope they both get out of there somehow, and I think we all agree Shohei's probably getting traded this year because I don't think there's any shot the Angels are re-signing him because I don't think they can invest $900 million in 2 players, which is what it's going to take to keep him. And I think it's going to get to the point with Mikey that I think the worst thing, if you're an Angels front office guy, I think the worst thing that happened to you this year was him to catch that bug and with the World Baseball Classic. He knows what it feels like now. That is not something you're going to forget, and he's just going to want to go play somewhere where he can do that. And he knocks on the door and says, "I want to go." I mean, the haul that you're going to get back for both of them will be insane. But I think the Angels are going to look at a full rebuild in the next year or two. And their fans aren't going to want to hear that, but I think it's just realistic.
They have to.
You do.
All right, well, we got to move. We're a little behind the 8 ball. We got NFL to get into, UFC predictions, the Masters, and Cottrell's only got a little bit of time left. So, Cottrell, let's start with your linebackers list. Top 5 linebackers. Now, we left edge rushers off this list. We'll do that next week. But these are the top 5 linebackers according to Cottrell.
So yeah, I'll go 5-1 here. I'm starting at number 5. I got Owen Pepo from Auburn. Owen was a 5-star kid coming into Auburn, and he played well. I know Owen's not one of the consensus top 10 linebackers in this class. I love his potential though, and I do think this is a weaker linebacker class. So that's why he's as high as he is on my list. I don't love this linebacker class. I think the top three are really good and can play for pretty much anybody. But what Owen does is he has great speed. He's a 4.3 guy. He went 4.39 at the combine. He can run sideline to sideline. One thing with him is that he doesn't do a good job weaving through traffic, shedding blocks, diagnosing run, things like that. I think if he can go to a team with veteran leadership and can kind of almost teach him the game of football, and he just doesn't rely on his athleticism as much, I think he could be a really good outside linebacker for you. You need a Mike there to kind of teach him the ropes and show him where to go, but I think he could be a good outside linebacker in the NFL. My number 4 is Trenton Simpson. I think Trenton Simpson is a guy he's good in pass coverage. Being on that Clemson defense, I think definitely benefits him. Made his job a lot easier when you got Murphy and Brees opening up things for you. Makes your job to flow and things like that a whole lot easier. I think Trent Simpson goes to the league, and I think he's going to be perfectly fine there. My number 3 is Noah Sewell. So Noah's an interesting prospect because coming into this season, I feel like he was kind of the consensus number 1 linebacker in this class. Definitely took a step back this upcoming year. But the nice thing about Noah is that his upside is truly special. Obviously, his brother Panay is in the NFL already. Noah's a crazy athlete. The one thing that really hurt him was that he played his worst game of his career on the brightest stage of them all, and that was against Georgia week 1. Obviously, Georgia has a great O-line, so that kind of thing can happen. But I think Noah is going to go to the NFL, be completely fine. I think he's a good linebacker prospect that you could probably get 2nd round. Drew Sanders. If you watch his film, he is a fun guy to watch. Drew's a guy who's not afraid to go down and hit. He's a transfer from Bama. At Bama, he was originally recruited as an edge rusher. So as a stand-up linebacker, he's actually really good at rushing the passer. Very good bending the hoop and getting after the quarterback. So that's one of the things I love about him. And he is not afraid to stick his nose in anything. Great instincts, great at contain. He's a linebacker that flows, Didn't test off the charts, but the way that he flows, and if you watch his game film, he's going to be an every down linebacker in the NFL. And then my number 1 is Jack Campbell. The Jack Campbell from Iowa. His film is also absolutely incredible. He's a monster out there on the field. He has a physical presence about him that you can always spot exactly where he is at on film. If you watch the game against Ohio State, he bullied those offensive linemen there. And that's a Ohio State offensive line with 2 tackles that are most likely going to get drafted in the 1st round. So Jack Campbell, aggressive, great athlete, and can get after the quarterback as well. So he's my number 1 linebacker in this class.
Love it. Who's next? That's me. Listen, we say we want to say. I like Henry Tutu. I do. I really do. Bama breeds some very good linebackers. And yes, he was playing in the middle with Will Anderson Jr. coming around the edge. But I like me some Henry Tutu. I don't even know how to say his last name right. Tutu. Am I saying it right, Cottrell?
I think it's 2020.
2020. I'm good with it. I love the kid. He flies to the ball. He great in the backfield, plays downhill. Give me some Henry. Tutu. I don't know. I'm done.
2020.
2020. Number 4 is Drew Sanders. I'm a Drew Sanders guy, just like Cottrell is. I think that his moving to a stand-up linebacker is hurting his draft stock as a whole. The league is filled with edge rushers, but I think Drew Sanders is fun to watch. The guy's, I don't think he's going to fare well in coverage, but he'll definitely be a good, 2-down linebacker that's going to play with bigger sets. I don't think Drew will be great in coverage against tight ends. This is a weaker linebacker class, but I think Drew is going to be fine at getting after the quarterback. Reminds me, it's kind of weird, this comparison, but reminds me very much of a Jeremiah Trotter type linebacker, a guy that's going to dart at your backfield, dart at your linebacker, at your running back, at your quarterback. I like Trenton Simpson a lot. I have him higher than you do, Cottrell, which is I thought you'd have Simpson number 1 because of the last name, little Homer Simpson action. I like Trenton Simpson a lot. He runs great. He can cover. He can also get after the quarterback. He can do everything. The sideline skills are there. That Clemson defense was highly underrated. And the reason they were so underrated was because they had such a weak offense that they weren't winning or dominating games the way they should. But Trenton Simpson showed up on film well. I believe in the Noah Sewell hype. I do. I think he's got that pedigree in his family, NFL player, him and Penn. I think that Noah was stuck in a rock and a hard place with that Georgia offensive line. They abused him week 1, but he got better as the season went on. He looked good in conference play, and Noah Sewell finished the season very good. His game versus Utah was incredible. But with that being said, I think Noah Sewell is the second best linebacker in this class. And I agree with Cottrell when I have Jack Campbell, number 1. Jack Campbell is a physical specimen. The guy is strong. He's going to outlift any linebacker on this list. But Jack Campbell is not just strong. He's quick. He's going to get off of run blocks, and he's going to be fine in middle pass coverage. Do not expect him to drop deep into the secondary and run with some of these Darren Waller type tight ends, but he will be fine covering running backs out of the backfield, and his sideline-to-sideline skills are there. The best thing that stands out to me about Jack Campbell is his instincts. His instincts of where the ball are off the charts. I think he's underrated in this. They haven't predicted to go in the second, third round. I think he's a first-round talent. I'll take Jack Campbell on my football team any day of the week. That's my 5. Look at this. I love it.
So for me, I'm gonna go with Nick Herbig for number 5 from Wisconsin. Played a lot of edge for Wisconsin. He's gonna, we kind of talked about this already about, Drew Sanders and a couple other people. They're gonna project more linebackers in the league. Got him number 5. Same type of, Genius mentioned it with Drew Sanders, which I'll get into in a second. Great against the run, great at going after your quarterback. He's really going to have to learn how to probably drop back in coverage a little bit. He's probably going to play off ball. He's not going to play in the middle in the NFL. Good athlete though, good instincts. He's fast, can make a lot of plays. I think he has a lot of potential. Maybe not as high as a floor as some of these other guys. I think he's got a pretty decent, sneaky kind of high ceiling. Yep. So I have him number 5. Number 4, the guy you guys both have, Trenton Simpson, Cottrell's brother. Went to Clemson, played on a very talented defense there. Sneaky thing about him is I think he has the potential to maybe start day 1 if he gets drafted by the right team. Such a good athlete. They actually had him in the slot a couple times the last 2 years. Very good against the pass. Faced 612 snaps defensively in coverage, covering tight ends or even slot wide receivers. Only give up 400 yards. So it tells you what kind of sneaky athlete he is. Again, another guy's probably not going to play in the middle. He's going to play off ball. So Great athlete. Number 3,
Zero white written all over him.
Yeah, it's a great comparison. Dion Henley, neither one of you guys have, which I was a little bit surprised, but he's a freak athlete. The guy used to play wide receiver. He is fast. Sideline to sideline is not going to be a problem. If there's anything that maybe, he doesn't quite have the instincts that maybe a Drew Sanders or a Jack Campbell has, and that's just simply because he hasn't played the position that long.
You know why I didn't have him on my top 5? I can't, and listen, you're right. He is a freak athlete. But when I watched him on tape, I can't draft a linebacker that struggles tackling. And he is not a good tackler. And yes, he's there and he's good in coverage and he's in the backfield and he's quick. He's athletic. He's a freak. Can't tackle that well. And at the linebacker position, you have to tackle better than any position on the field. That's the only reason. And you know what the crazy part is? You're right. He could be top 5. He could be number 1, number 2, number 3 if he develops more. He hasn't played a position long. So, Shally, I love that you – that's right. The reason I clapped when you had him there is because I'm really debating on putting him on my list. I really love you putting him here because you're projecting him to improve as a tackler, and I'm with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's I don't disagree with really anything he said. I think he's a little bit a better tackler than you give him credit for, depending on who you read up on or whatever. PFF has him only missing 5 tackles and 97 chances. I watched enough that I think that's a little bit off. I think he's a high risk, high reward guy. I think somebody you could probably take in the 3rd or 4th round that might end up being, an all-pro guy that's a stalwart and
100%.
A centerpiece in your defense. I think if he goes to a really strong DC that can really kind of teach him the game more and teach defense more and read and, kind of get his instincts to be on par with, with some of these other guys on the list. I think he's a chance to be a special player because the athleticism is definitely there. Drew Sanders, number 2. I have another guy, kid's an animal. He's just going to have to learn how to play coverage if he wants to play, at elite level at the NFL level. He's probably going to be another off-ball guy. He's going to be a 2-down guy. He's going to go after your quarterback. He's going to attack the rush, which he's great at. Yep. He loves to hit people. The kid definitely has the toughness factor, and he loves contact, which is what you want out of your linebackers. He's just not going to be a 3-down linebacker. That's the only reason I have him number 2. Number 1, you guys have already said everything I need to say. Jack Campbell's a stud, Midwest kind of kid, humble, strong as hell, really athletic, and he's a big kid. He's a kid that if you draft him, he's going to be your middle linebacker. He's going to be your defensive captain. He's going to be your defensive leader. You don't have to worry about drafting a middle linebacker for 10 years. He's that kind of ilk, that kind of guy. You're going to plug him. You're going to put him in number 1. You're going to put him in day 1. And he's going to play for you. And he'll give you everything you have on the field. Like Cottrell said, he is sneaky athletic. You look at him, he is fast. He can cover sideline to sideline, and he can run tackle with the best of them. So, and
I'll tell you, I hate that I'm using this comparison because I wish I could use a comparison of somebody that wasn't a Hall of Famer, but he reminds me of a poor man's Luke Kuechly.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, it just reminds me of that. I hate using that comparison because comparing a 2nd-round draft pick to one of the greatest linebackers you'll ever see. But I see him and the instincts are there and the sideline is there and he's the captain of a defense. He's very intelligent. I'm a fan. So looks like we're a lot higher on Jack Campbell than a lot of pro scouts are.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should be the consensus number 1 linebacker in this class. And agreed. I get it. In other years past, I understand saying that he'd be a 2nd-round guy, but best linebacker in the class, I don't think there's any way he makes the 2nd round. There's few teams out there that need linebackers.
You think he goes late mid-20s?
Yeah, I think somebody reaches for him just because, and I hate saying reach because
I don't think it's a
projections because I don't think it's a reach exactly, but he's projecting on the 2nd round. I think a team you could take Jack Campbell in the 1st round and be happy if you need a linebacker in this year's class.
Yeah. I think he's there after 20, and then I think somebody moves up, maybe from early 2nd, swaps 2s and moves up 5 or 6 spots and takes him like 25 on somewhere because they know he's not going to be there.
Yeah,
much.
And that's where the good teams draft. That's where the good teams draft.
Yep.
What would be a really good home for him? Cincinnati, 26.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that.
They're
Buffalo
loaded
wouldn't
at-
be a bad home either.
I'm not going to say they're loaded at linebacker, but they have two good Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt both are very good at the position.
I think it's more of a need for Buffalo now, especially after they lost what's his face. So I mean, I
Milano?
could, yeah, Milano, I could see that as well.
All right, let's get into UFC. I need to get Cottrell's UFC takes before he got out of here. I got some wild ones, man. I guess we'll just go over to all right before we go over the main two fights, because that's the two fights we're going to discuss. Is there anything on the undercard? I can't wait to watch the Raul Rosas Jr. versus Christian Rodriguez fight. I mean, you want to talk about a young up and coming stud? That fight's going to feature Christian Rodriguez, who is just the new it thing.
And you got Raul Rosas is the youngest fighter to ever be in the UFC. I mean, he signed his contract at 17 and then got a win in his UFC debut. So the crazy there is actually a really good fighter, not really good, but top 8 fighter, I believe, that is on the undercard. Is it Curtis Blades? I think is on the prelims because of this, but
I got you right here. It's Kelvin Gastelum versus Chris Curtis.
Chris Curtis, that's who it is. Chris Curtis.
Gastelum's favored in that fight.
It's kind of interesting, but that's a fight that would normally be on a main card. But you got these two talented young kids that are.
It's Christian Rodriguez and Raul Rosas Jr. will be the most exciting fight on the card. It will.
I disagree, but I do think it'll be exciting.
Well, Rob Font, Adrian Yanez has an opportunity to be that too, but they're both great fights. I think so. I'll just give you quick picks. I got Christian Rodriguez with the upset. He's plus 210. I'll take Rodriguez over Rosas Jr. I'll take Big Mouth Kevin Holland over Santiago, and I got Rob Font to upset Adrian Yanez. They're my 3 undercard fights. Well, not undercard.
I got Raul getting the win over Christian. Give me Ponzinibbio over Holland. I think that one is. I don't want to say a gimme because I like Kevin Holland, especially with his move down to welterweight, but I don't see Santiago losing that fight. And then I also like Rob Font in that bantamweight fight. Kevin Holland's a
minus 265 favorite. You might have convinced me just to throw $50 on Santiago just because he's a plus 200 dog.
I mean, Kevin Holland has looked good making his move down to welterweight. So don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sure a lot of the odds are based off of that, how good he's looked down at 170. But I think Santiago takes care of business there. Rob Font is the weirdest fighter right now. He's a guy who was arguably one, maybe two fights away from being a serious title contender. Missed weight 1 fight, and now he's down to 6 in the rankings. And this is a fight that I don't think really moves the needle for him because bantamweight is loaded right now.
I agree with you. Charlie, who you got in those 3 fights?
I agree with both of you. I think Rob Font wins. I actually think Kevin Holland pulls it out, though. I think it's a close fight. I think it's a very good fight. I think his experience and like Cottrell said, since he's moved down, I think he's looked better. I think it's a better weight class and size wise and strength wise for him. I think Kevin Holland pulls that fight out.
Who you got in the opener?
I'll go with Rosas.
Rosas is 18 and it's like 6 days. I'm kidding, but he's young. I just think that he's not ready for this.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah, you're right.
Only reason why he performed well this first fight. Like he knows what it's like now, so I think he got that out the way. Miami's going to be a different animal, but we'll see what he has.
All right, well, let's get into these 2 main cards. Gilbert Bone's a heavy favorite over Jorge Masvidal. Minus 520 favorite, plus 360 for Jorge Masvidal. This is a fight that I'll let you 2 go first.
I mean, I'll go jump out the gate with it. I don't see. There's a way for Jorge to win. The way Jorge wins is if he knocks out Gilbert Burns. So if you're going to bet on this fight, you bet on Jorge knocking out Gilbert Burns, especially the way the odds are set up. But I don't see Gilbert Burns losing this fight. The last couple fights from Gilbert Burns, he's looked incredible. I think Gilbert Burns is on his way back up to the top of that welterweight division. You have a lot of question marks at the top. Obviously, it seems like Kobe's going to be your number one contender right now, but the way Gilbert fought Hamzat, who's appears to no longer be in that division, and just the way Gilbert Burns has fought just in general, I think is warranted him in the discussion of getting a title shot. So I think he takes care of Jorge, and after the whole Kobe and Leon stuff gets settled, I think Gilbert's right there back in the thick of the title hunt picture.
Yeah. I hear you. Charlie?
I'm gonna go with Gilbert as well. I think he's just a better fighter, and I think he's a better fighter fighting right now. Again, you never count Jorge out of a fight. I mean, he can knock you out with both hands, but I think that's what it's going to take. I think that's the only way he can win the fight. I know he will be in front of his home crowd in Miami. He's going to be hyped up. The crowd will be fully behind him. But I like Gilbert Burns. I think Cottrell brought up a good point for me. I think his last 4 fights, even one of them being a loss, I think he's looked incredible. It's something, I think he's kind of like really finding his stride and kind of getting into that peak territory of his career. I think he's just too much for Jorge. I think Jorge losing 4 in a row, if he loses this fight, I think it starts becoming an interesting conversation. But I like Gilbert Burns to get it done. I think the fight goes the distance. I think Gilbert by decision, but I just think he's too well rounded, and he's just too confident right now. I just think he has more weapons. I just think he's the better overall fighter.
I have really interesting take on this. Jorge's my favorite fighter. Everybody knows that. I'm not trying to hide that. He's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. I love the way he fights. Jorge Masvidal's faced his last 3 fights. He's faced the 2 best wrestlers in this division, with Colby and then Kamaru twice. Gilbert Burns is a great wrestler also. It's the reason Hamzat didn't take him down the whole fight. Is Gilbert is extremely good at takedown defense, at getting takedowns, at ground and pound, at control. Jorge Masvidal has to keep this fight on its feet. I think Gilbert wins the fight by points. That's where my head's at. But I can't bet it on value. My bet on value is Jorge Masvidal plus 900 to win by points. It's a 3-round fight. And Jorge is good enough to spar and box with anybody in the division. So if he can stop Gilbert from taking him down and win the first round, because that's normally his best round, he has an opportunity to steal round 2 or 3. I think with Gilbert being a little bit of a slow starter in most fights, if you give Jorge Masvidal round 1 and Jorge doesn't get knocked out, I think Jorge Masvidal plus 900 for points is your best bet here. Cottrell, I know you got to hop out. I would love your take on Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya before you head out. I appreciate you putting all the graphics together, and I would love to get your take here.
So this fight is one that, all the anticipation has led up to this. Alex Pereira got the TKO win over Izzy in their last matchup. I got Izzy reclaiming his belt here. I think this is going to be a 5-round war, and I think Izzy took Alex's best shot in that last fight. Obviously, he lost that, but I do think that he had a little bit more rope to. I think he should have had a little bit more rope in that fight. I'm okay with the stoppage. I don't think it's egregious or anything like that. I do think it was a little early, but I'm not hanging my hat on it. I'm okay with it. But I think in this fight, Izzy has made it super known that he wants to go out on his shield. And we saw in that fight that Izzy was in control and he was on his way to a decision by points. And so I do still think Alex is still raw, and he obviously good kickboxer, but still raw, and I think Izzy, as long as he picks his spots and does what he did in that first fight without getting caught how he did, I think Izzy is capable of winning this fight. The only thing that kind of goes into it, though, is at this point, it's kind of a mind thing. Obviously, he beat you twice in kickboxing. Now he beat you in the UFC, took your belt from you. You got to be in the right headspace. You got to stay focused, things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how he overcomes that. Alex definitely seems locked in. Now he has Glover Teixeira in his quarter as well. So I'm sure his jiu-jitsu is just getting better day by day. But I think Izzy wins this fight by points, and I think this is the fight of the night.
Okay. I appreciate your take. If you need to hop off, we'll take care of it from here.
All right. Sounds good. I'm gonna put my PGA winners out there just real quick. I got Dustin Johnson winning it all, plus 2,500. Hasn't won since he won the Masters in 2020. So hasn't won a major since he won the Masters in 2020. So I think this is the year he puts his name back on the map. People are going to be mad because he's one of those LIV guys, and he's going to win the tournament. The other name that I like at plus 7,500 is Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed has won the Masters before, plays well there. For the odds, I like him as a long shot. So those are my two picks this week.
Cottrell, as always, appreciate you, man. Before you go, I'll just tell you right now, I switched my pick. I had Alex Pereira up until this morning. And I listened to Izzy and I listened to him talk, and he sold me on it. He did. He 100% sold me on it. And he said, this is my 8 Mile moment. And he's talking about, I think the thing a lot of people forget is when Alex beat Izzy twice in kickboxing, Alex was away from the sport, wasn't fighting. Izzy made a comment and said something really stupid, in my opinion. He's like, oh, this loser is going to be sitting in a bar talking about he beat me and blah, 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 when someone brought up the fact that Alex Pereira beat him twice. Alex Pereira, 7 months later, signed up for UFC. Started doing MMA then. 7 months later, he got signed by UFC. And now, just a year and a half later, he is the middleweight champion of the world. That was 2 years and 2 months ago when Izzy said those comments. I think you're finally going to walk into a fight where Izzy's not going to fight him scared. I thought he fought him scared last time. Scared of that big knockout punch. I think his cardio and I think everything about Izzy this fight will be 100% more of an attack. You'll know by the second round who's going to win this fight, and you'll know it clearly. If Alex is walking him down like he did last fight, and Izzy's trying to stick and move for 5 rounds, he's going to get caught again. But if Izzy is stalking Alex and getting after him and getting inside of his guard and bobbing and weaving like we've seen Izzy do before, you guys all forget that Izzy fought, I forget that, who's that monster he fought that got popped for steroids multiple times? Brazilian guy. Yeah, man, I'm losing it right now. But this guy's fought plenty of.
Oh, you're talking about Paulo Costa.
Yes, fought plenty of knockout artists throughout his career, and Izzy has normally brought the fight to them. He has smothered them. He has got inside their guard and really pushed them back. When he fights Alex, it seems like he's fighting off his back feet, like he's trying to stick and move, like he's a boxer. These guys aren't boxers. Take care, Cottrell. Appreciate you. Sorry.
Yes, sir. See you guys.
Shai, these guys aren't boxers.
No.
So when you're fighting with these smaller ounce gloves, it's I'll fix that. Don't like that one either. Let's do this one. There we go. But when you're fighting these guys that have these smaller ounce gloves, you can't stick and move for 5 rounds in championship fights.
No, it's too easy to catch somebody. And I mean, it doesn't even have to be, a full catch with as hard as some of these guys swing. Like you said, with the small gloves. I don't want to say Izzy fought scared the first fight. I agree with you. I would say he fought overly cautious, which still isn't his natural demeanor in the ring, which is where I think again where I think it cost him the fight. I think he was comfortably in the lead, and in round 5, and like you said, man, it UFC is too much of a you only have to get caught once. I mean, in boxing, you see it once in a while, but when you see two great boxers fighting, it's usually not just one shot. It's a shot or it's a combo where they get hurt and then then they
Yeah.
get finished. I mean, it's one hitter quitter stuff in the UFC with these small gloves, with as strong as some of these guys are. It's I do agree wholeheartedly with you though. I think Izzy has to come out and make Alex Perez defensive, because I think if he does that, especially like you said in the first 2.5 rounds, if he can come out and actually do damage and make Alex Perez fight defensively, then I think he wins the fight easily, because Alex Perez is not that type of fighter. Alex Perez wants to stalk you
Well,
down. Wants
Izzy
to be able
kind
to,
of slipped his game plan. Izzy said he's going to take him down. He accidentally said it, and he's like, it could be anything. But like he slipped his game plan accidentally in an interview. And I think if Izzy wrestles him and puts him on his back, Alex is in a world of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I know we how much respect we have for Glover, and how great he is at jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't. I mean, Alex Perez is not there yet. I think he's probably very fundamental with submissions, and he could probably defend himself well enough on the ground. I think Izzy would have to do something really stupid to get caught in a submission by Alex Perez at this point of where he is with his jiu-jitsu. So, it's I kind of look at the fight a lot like you do. I thought Izzy was going to win the first time, and for 4.5 rounds I was right. But you have to give Alex Perez his due. I gotta give him his credit, but I don't think he lands the punch this time. I think Izzy wins. I think he gets his belt back, and then I guess we're gonna see it again.
Yeah, I hear you. So we all got Izzy. It's scaring me. I'm hoping I was all on Alex's until I listened to Izzy talk, and he talked about takedowns, talked about his 8 Mile moment, and I don't know. I liked what I heard, man. He sold me on it, so I'll take Izzy to win this fight.
I think Izzy is one of the most honest and kind of he believes a lot of that stuff. I mean, we've all seen the viral clip of that fight that he's in when going around 5, and he's like, I'm prepared to die. Like he that is how he approaches things. Like that is that's not for show. I'll say it that way. Where some guys talk about that type of stuff. Izzy's about it though. I think you said earlier about him going out on a shield, and I think that's the case. I think Izzy knows what this fight potentially means for him career wise, and especially with life within the 185 division. If Pereira beats him again, I mean, Izzy gets in the perennial kind of hell spot. There's nowhere for him to go. I mean, somebody's gonna have to beat Pereira. So it's I think it's gonna be a good fight. I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a little bit of a banger, and I try not to let like my feelings get in the way, because I love Izzy. Like I don't have any issues with Alex. It's just that again, like kind of like what you brought up. I love the way Izzy approaches fights and how he talks, and he's just very raw, and he's very honest, and he's very real. I like fighters like that. So personally, I'm hoping he wins. I will be upset if he loses, but I actually think he gets it done Saturday. I really do.
All right, well, let's move on. A tradition unlike any other, the Masters.
The Masters.
How you feeling about this year's Masters? Start us off. Give us a little intro to what you're looking at.
You want the intro? All right. Well, I mean, it's played at the most beautiful place on earth, Augusta National Golf Course, Augusta, Georgia. It's the 86th version of the best tournament of the year. I talked about it 2 weeks ago on the show. This time of year, I love. You get opening day, which is baseball, which will always have my heart. But right behind it, you have March Madness, and you have the Masters, which I love. So, it's a little bit it's a little bit different this year, because we're gonna have all the live guys there, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's the potential to be a really exciting tournament, and I say that because a lot of the big names are actually playing very well right now. So this is a year where I don't think you famously hit your long shot 2 years ago, the first year we did the show, which was great. I don't think we're going to have that this year. I think there's too many top guys that are in great form right now that are playing
Okay.
too well. I firmly, I'm not saying it's going to be the number one favorite. I just don't think any, like, what was he when he hit the board for you that year? He was like plus like 4,800 or something.
4,700. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting anybody from down there this year. I still have a few picks for you in that range anyway. I know Gene does. We were talking about it last night, but I expect one of the
I have
big.
nobody 4,700. Nobody.
Actually, I don't know how my lowest one's 3,700. So I don't have anybody down there either.
My
But
lowest is 44, and which is Brooksy.
Brooksy's up to 37 now because
Well,
he's one of
hey,
mine.
listen, doesn't matter. I got it at 44.
Oh, good for
I
you.
don't care where they got it.
Listen, I mean, it's like I said, we're gonna have the whole live factor. Can Scotty Scheffler repeat? Big storyline. Can Rory finally win the Masters and close the Grand Slam and kind of get on that that mountain of immortality with the other? There's only 5 guys that have ever done it. Obviously, Tiger, Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, and Jack Nicklaus. Like the absolutely who's who of golf in the history of golf. I think weather's going to be a factor this week, which is a little bit, which sucks a little bit. They're expecting a bunch of bad storms down there as well. Then there's a good shot this tournament doesn't finish on Sunday. But the beauty of the Masters is, which we all love seeing, is how fast the greens are. When a guy's hit a ball like at a part of a green and it rolls all the way over next to the hole. I think these guys are going to be able to be a little bit more aggressive this weekend because I think the course is going to be a little bit wet. I think I'll be able to go at pins a little bit more, which will be exciting to watch. I think it just favors the guys that can hit the ball really far and then have great wedge play. And I think that narrows the field a little bit for me.
All right. Well, I'll go over my winners. I have 3. I have 3 winners. I don't think any of them are heavy favorites. I don't think any of them are long shots. I would consider them all middle of the road guys. Brooks is still 44. I just checked on FanDuel.
Okay. It moved a lot. So, it doesn't surprise me.
My furthest long shot would be Brooks Koepka at plus 4,400. He's actually finally hitting his groove. He's been hitting the ball really well. I'm talking like a guy that watches golf. I don't watch that much, but I know who Brooks Koepka is, and he's been hitting the ball pretty well. Cameron Young, somebody said this to me yesterday.
It's a big name.
What?
He's a big name. He's a very good young golfer.
Plus 3,200. I think that he has a very good chance of winning the tournament. But my official pick, if I have to put it down to one guy, I got Sung J M at plus 4,100 to win the Masters. He finished top 10 in the Masters, 3 out of the last 4 years?
Yeah, and the year that he didn't, I think, was the year that he was either hurt or sick, like something happened. The last 3 years, he's been top 10.
He knows the course well. He's plus 4,100, and those odds are just too good for me to pass up.
All right, I'm gonna give you a couple of things here. You get a little parlay of Scheffler and Spieth both to finish top 10. It's gonna put you about a plus 1,000, which I think is an absolute steal. And I think you would almost need bad luck not to hit that. That's something to look at playing. I have 2 long shots. I have Victor Hovland. He's at plus 3,700.
Yep.
He's notoriously played well there. He's very streaky as a putter. Great ball strike. Length to play there, even if it's wet, he'll be able to keep up with Rory and Scheffler and Koepka and DJ and all the big guys. He's one of those guys that's at the top of that list of the best guys that have never won a major, and he's going to do it eventually. Could be this weekend. I think he's worth sprinkling some money on. My second long shot is the guy Gene already mentioned. I'm a huge Brooks Koepka fan. I've picked him for other things on this show before. I think he's a legit shot to win, and I think he's the guy nobody's talking about, which they should be. He won the live event last week. It was 15 under. The big thing with him is, like Gene said, he is actually hitting the ball very well right now. But the biggest issue with him is he really hasn't been healthy the last 18 months, and he finally is. His knee is healthy. His hip is healthy. He's hitting the ball a mile again. People also forget 2 years in a row going into the back nine on Sunday, he was tied for the leader, one back, and he imploded on number 12 2 years in a row. If not, you're talking about a guy already that's won 4 majors. He can absolutely win the Masters, and if you think he can't, you're a fool. He is my, for lack of a better term, second long shot pick. And I agree with Gene. I think it's disrespectful to me that his odds are that low. I think there's a lot of money to be made there possibly. I promise you, if he goes out tomorrow and has a good year or a good day, excuse me, those odds are going to drop dramatically. So if you're a Brooks guy or think he has a shot, bet him now before they tee off tomorrow. My pick to win is going to be the guy that I already mentioned. I think Rory finally gets it done. This will be his ninth try. I know he's plus 750. I've always been a big Rory guy, but he's playing great right now. He's playing
I feel like
well.
you've picked Rory more on this show than anybody.
Probably. Um, Again, all the signs point to everything you'd want to do to pick a guy to win a tournament. He has right now. He came in third in the match play last week. He has a win already. He won a tournament earlier this year. He's playing great. He's confident. And again, I think the wet course plays into his hands a lot. I think he can carry the ball 330 in the air. There's maybe 3 or 4 other guys that can do that. I think if the course gets real wet and real slow, it's a huge advantage for him. So I'm going to go with Rory to complete the Grand Slam. Came in second last year, had a great back nine on Sunday. Ended up shooting a 64 and tying the course record. So I like Rory to get it done. He's my pick.
Okay. We'll see what happens with this Masters. A tradition unlike any other. Let's
Can't
move
wait.
on to You Gotta Be Kidding Me. Charlie, there's too many this week. There's too many. You better have one.
I have one. I'm going to go with one that I've kind of been sitting on. I'm going to go back to the golf well here. I'm going to go with Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner. So, to keep this as short as I can, Phil Mickelson was kind of the first person to break away, and a lot of his comments leaked about it. An unauthorized biography was being written about him. And he said a lot of things about the PGA Tour and kind of started this whole debacle, if you will. Fast forward 12 months later, and here we are. And if you go down and look at the list of things that Phil Mickelson said that the PGA Tour was guilty of, he's almost been spot on with all of them. All of a sudden, these guys went to live and started making more money. And all of a sudden now the PGA Tour found all this money from sponsors and all this money from other donors to make the purses go through the roof. Now they're playing this like, preferred tournament schedule where all the big guys have to show up for a certain amount of tournaments. Straight down the line. I'm not, again, I said it when it happened. I'm not going to excuse certain things that Phil said, but a lot of the things Phil said in regards to operations and handling of the money and how guys are treated on the tour, it's all come to light. And Jay Monahan keeps getting on TV saying it's not this, it's not that. And he keeps changing things. And the PGA Tour is damn near almost mirroring the Live Tour now. I think he's put a lot of people in a lot of bad spots, and I think over the next 12 to 18 months, that's all going to come to fruition. And I don't think Jay Monahan is going to be the PGA Tour commissioner anymore. A lot of guys are already upset. They're going to have to change their schedules. And, John Rahm has already come out and said he's not really happy with certain things because there's, if he wants to play tournaments, like he plays the Farmers Insurance Open, for instance, every year, that's not going to be a preferred tournament next year. But if he wants to play that, he has to now add that to his list because he's going to be a top guy and he has to play all these other high money tournaments. He plays that tournament every year because that's where he met his wife. He met his wife there. They started dating, and he also proposed to her there. And he loves the golf course. But now John Rahm's like, if I want to play over in Spain, the Spanish Open, like I do every year because he's from Spain, he goes, now I'm playing 20 tournaments next year. He's like, now I'm playing more than I ever have. And I'm doing that because we're trying to do the same thing Liv is, and nobody just wants to come out and say it. So for me, Jay Monahan, I think I said from the get-go, I think he's handled this whole thing terribly. I think he's going to lose. I think the PGA Tour is going to lose in court. I think this is going to be a huge debacle. It's still getting going. But for me this week, Jay Monahan for just being completely out of your element and probably going to end up sinking a lot of these guys on tour eventually. I wish you would.
On, you gotta be kidding me.
All right, so I have one. It's very easy, and it's very I can't believe that Major League Baseball. First of all, I would love to give it to Major League Baseball. Let me start there. Anthony Rendon grabbed a fan by their throat and threw a punch at a fan and got a 4-game suspension. Are you out of your mind? Look, I hope there's a professional athlete listening to this show right now, or a potential professional athlete listening to this show right now. Stop caring about what the fans say to you, unless they're attacking your family or going really, really, really out of pocket with with racism, of something of that nature, I understand it. But just to listen, Anthony Rendon said the fan called him a bitch. If a fan calls you a bitch and you make $24 million a year, don't react to them. Talk to the ushers, talk to the people that work the stadium, and get the fan escorted out of the stadium. But to grab a guy by the throat and throw a punch at him, you can't do that, Anthony Rendon. So that's my first, you got to be kidding me. So I'll play the track real quick.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
And my second one, and I got to add this one in there, is Keith Olbermann. I talked about this earlier on the show. 20-year-old college student that just won a national championship. And you go popping off the mouth calling this young girl an effing idiot. Are you out of your mind, Keith? Keith, what are you thinking? Shut up. Stop tweeting. Put down the phone. And then he had to backtrack it all weekend when Shaq came out and told him what time it was. Look, I just want people to keep that same energy. And if there's a lot of things that go down in professional sports where it's trash talk, and if you want to call out a 20-year-old African-American girl that goes to LSU, then you better be calling out the white girl that goes to Iowa. You better be calling out the Patrick Beverleys of the world. You better be calling out Dylan Brooks. I want to hear that same energy for the men, the women, of anybody. But don't get on the only college basketball game you watch of the year and attack the Bayou Barbie. Don't do that. I don't agree with what she did, but she's a 20-year-old college student. Knock it off. So for that reason, Keith Olbermann.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
I love that clip. That's my favorite clip. Just be able to play that.
We were talking about that today, how, I mean, Old School definitely gets like its credit for being such a great movie, but I feel like it doesn't get its due compared to some of the other ones that came out. That movie's hilarious. I mean, I think it's just as good as
Step Brothers.
Yeah, like all that stuff.
I'm with you. It's been a fun show. Fun show. We got through a lot of information in a good amount of time. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Please download us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or wherever you watch podcasts. Wire2Wire is doing big things. And we broke our record last month for most downloads. So all that means to me is we need more downloads in April. So we need your help because we can't take a step back. We ain't going backwards. We've been trending forward since November, hitting new highs in different platforms. Shout out to Sports Empire Network, Freddie, Key, Dante, everybody over there. My man Kyle Edwards. Shout out to everybody that's been helping with Wire2Wire for our downloads, all the listeners each week. Any final thoughts, Shally, before we wrap it up?
Gotta wish my Michigan Wolverines some luck this week. They play tomorrow night in the national semifinal for the Frozen Four for the hockey team. Came up a game short last year, playing the semifinals this year. If they win that, they'll go to the national championship Saturday night. So I'm hoping they get it done this year. Most successful college hockey program in the country. I hope they can raise one more banner at Yost Arena next year. So I'll be pulling for them and watching that. So go Blue.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. This is Wire2Wire Sports Podcast, episode 130, and we are signing out.